The world knew the Dallas Cowboys as America's team, Super Bowl 30 champions, heroes in silver and blue, but in Quantico, Virginia, FBI agents knew them differently, subjects of investigation. Case File 95-HC-5784. 3 players, multiple drug distribution charges, organized crime connections deeper than imagined. For 2 years, federal agents watched, recorded, built a case that could destroy the most valuable franchise in professional sports. Then suddenly, the investigation vanished. Files sealed, names redacted. Jerry Jones walked out of FBI headquarters smiling. What happened in that meeting? Which players were named? How did America's team escape justice? Subscribe and turn on notifications because what we're about to reveal is one of the darkest secrets in NFL history. January 26, 1996, Sun Devil Stadium, Arizona. 65,000 fans watched Dallas defeat Pittsburgh 27-17, winning Super Bowl 30. Troy Aikman raised the Lombardi Trophy under confetti. Emmitt Smith waved his championship cap. Michael Irvin shouted, "We are the greatest team ever assembled." America loved them. Sponsors lined up behind them. Every player was a superstar, every game a show, every victory a celebration. But in the FBI Dallas office, Special Agent Robert Fletcher watched through a very different lens. On his desk lay 23 months of surveillance records, hundreds of photographs, 12 hours of wiretap recordings, documents showing 3 Cowboys players directly connected to a drug distribution network. That night, Fletcher wrote in his notebook, "They just won the Super Bowl. We're about to destroy their dynasty." But things didn't go as planned. 14 months later, that investigation file would be sealed under national security grounds. Fletcher and his team reassigned to different departments, Jerry Jones walking out of FBI headquarters with a smile on his face. What happened in those 14 months? What power convinced the FBI to abandon the biggest drug investigation in American sports? And which 3 Cowboys players' names were written in those sealed files? The Cowboys story began in 1989, but that beginning wasn't bright. That season, Dallas won just 1 game, lost 15, went down in history as the worst team in the NFL. The firing of legendary coach Tom Landry sent shockwaves through Dallas because Landry was a Cowboys icon, the man who led that team for 29 years. But new owner Jerry Jones had a different vision. He brought in Jimmy Johnson, his old teammate from University of Arkansas, as coach and began building a young, aggressive roster willing to do whatever it took to win. Troy Aikman drafted in '89, Emmitt Smith in '90, Michael Irvin on team since '88. This trio became the Triplets, the most lethal combination in NFL history. In 1992, the Cowboys won their first Super Bowl, crushing Buffalo Bills with a historic score of 52-17. That victory wasn't just a championship, it was a statement. Dallas Cowboys were back. But with that comeback came something else. Uncontrollable fame, unlimited money, a boundless party culture. Cowboys players weren't just winning on the field, they were pushing boundaries off it. Michael Irvin and teammates rented a mansion north of Dallas and named it the White House. The name seemed innocent, but what went on inside that house was anything but. Parties there attracted escorts, drug dealers, shady characters. The NFL, the media, even police turned blind eyes because Cowboys were winning, and in America winning teams were untouchable. Jimmy Johnson tried maintaining discipline in the locker room during those years, but Jerry Jones thought differently. In Jones' view, as long as players performed on the field, what they did off it didn't matter. This clash of visions exploded in 1994. One night at a restaurant in Orlando, drunk Jones told reporters any coach could win with this team. That sentence sealed Johnson's fate. Firing a coach who won 2 Super Bowls was crazy, but Jones wanted to win the ego war. Johnson left, Barry Switzer came in, and Switzer was much more lenient. Players were now less supervised, White House parties intensified. But nobody knew those parties were now being watched, not just by media, but by the FBI. It all started in May 1995 with a routine drug raid by Dallas police. A dealer caught in a house in Irving area gave an unexpected name during interrogation: Dallas Cowboys. Police initially didn't take it seriously because the idea of NFL players being directly involved in drug distribution seemed unbelievable, but when that dealer started providing details, things changed. He told them which clubs they met at, which hotels they conducted business in. Most strikingly, he claimed 3 players were regular customers, and 1 acted like a business partner. Dallas police reported the situation to FBI because drug distribution crossing state lines was federal crime. In June '95, FBI Special Agent Robert Fletcher took over the file. Fletcher was 42 years old, experienced agent who worked on organized crime, white-collar crime, drug trafficking during his 20-year FBI career. But this case was different because the target was America's most popular sports organization. Fletcher decided to verify information that dealer provided. He and his team began covert surveillance at nightclubs in North Dallas. In August '95, first photographs came. Michael Irvin and 2 teammates sitting at same table with a known drug dealer. September brought a wiretap warrant. October, a confidential informant was placed in the club. By November, Fletcher had to admit, Dallas Cowboys players weren't just using, they were playing an active role in the system. But the real bombshell dropped in December '95. A woman working at that club, who was FBI confidential informant, gave agents incredible information. One of the Cowboys players was selling clean urine to his teammates. To pass NFL regular drug tests, some players were paying for this service. According to the woman's statement, this system had been operating for years. At least 7 players had used this method. If this was true, there was a cheating scandal behind Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl victories. Fletcher added a note to the file, "This isn't just about drugs anymore. This is about the integrity of the sport." From that moment on, FBI investigation was taken much more seriously. Additional resources came from Quantico, surveillance team was expanded, the operation was given a code name, Operation Starfall. 3 players appeared most frequently in FBI Dallas Cowboys investigation, and agents gave them code names: the Distributor, the Connector, the Banker. These code names weren't chosen randomly, each represented that player's role in the organization. The Distributor was the person who obtained drugs from sources and distributed them firsthand. FBI documents stated he had direct connections with at least 4 different suppliers. The Connector was the person who used connections in Dallas nightlife, organized parties, arranged meetings in safe locations. The Banker was the player who managed the money, made payments, controlled the financial side of the system. FBI never revealed these 3 names, but there were 600 pages of documents about them in the files. When Cowboys won Super Bowl 30 in January '96, Fletcher and his team didn't join the celebration. For them, this victory meant more suspicious transactions because after big wins, Cowboys players usually threw big parties. Sure enough, 4 days after Super Bowl victory at a party held at the White House, FBI agents recorded 17 different drug transactions. Some players had come to the party still wearing their team jerseys, some had their Super Bowl championship rings in their pockets. In one of the photos taken that night, the player code named the Distributor was handing cash to a known cocaine dealer. In another photo, the Connector was sitting at a table with club owners. In a third photo, the Banker was talking on phone taking notes. For the FBI, there was now enough evidence. In March '96, Fletcher presented an arrest plan to his superiors, but that plan was never executed. Because in April '96, something unexpected happened. Michael Irvin was caught with cocaine in a motel room. Dallas police conducted a raid and seized Irvin, 2 escort women, small amount of cocaine. This incident created huge scandal in media and damaged Cowboys' image. But for FBI, this arrest was actually a bad development, because now media and public attention was on Cowboys, and a major federal operation could create too much noise right now. Fletcher received instructions from his superiors to slow down the investigation. Dallas police catching Irvin had weakened FBI hand because now everyone knew Cowboys players were using drugs, but nobody saw the bigger picture, a distribution network operating within the organization. And Jerry Jones would use this chaos as an opportunity. After Michael Irvin arrest in April '96, Jerry Jones assembled emergency crisis management team. This team included NFL top lawyers, public relations experts, private security consultants. For Jones, the priority was protecting Cowboys' brand because franchise value had exceeded $1 billion, and any major scandal could cut that value in half. In May '96, Jones had one-on-one meetings with some players at a private gathering in Dallas. What was discussed in that meeting was never revealed, but immediately afterward, some players' behavior changed. White House parties stopped. Some players moved out of Dallas. Most strikingly, some suspects on FBI surveillance lists disappeared. In July '96, Fletcher realized something was wrong. No new transactions had been recorded in last 6 weeks. Wiretap recordings were empty. Information from informants had decreased. Either Cowboys players had suddenly cleaned up or someone had warned them. Fletcher thought second possibility was more realistic. When he reported situation to his supervisor in August, his supervisor gave him surprising news. An order to suspend investigation had come from Washington. Why? There was no explanation. Just the phrase national security concerns. Fletcher had never encountered such an order in his career. What could a sports investigation have to do with national security? But orders were clear. Close the file, end surveillance, wait. In September '96, Jerry Jones did something that would be key to subsequent events. He had private dinner in Dallas with former FBI Director William Sessions. Sessions had served as FBI Director until '93, then was fired by Clinton administration, but was still a man with very strong connections in Washington. What they discussed at that dinner is unknown, but records show Sessions was Jones' private consultant at the time and provided security consulting services to Cowboys organization. In October, Jones made a second move. He held meeting in Washington, D.C. with Texas Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison. Hutchison was serving on Senate Drug Control Subcommittee at the time and could make decisions about FBI budget. After that meeting, a call came from Hutchison office to FBI Dallas Division Director. It's no coincidence that Fletcher's supervisor told him to close this file immediately afterward. In November '96, Fletcher made one last attempt. He directly contacted a senior manager at Quantico and presented the evidence he had. 600 pages of documents, hundreds of photographs, dozens of hours of wiretap recordings, evidence showing 3 players were directly involved in crime. But the answer was the same. The case would be closed, files would be sealed, the team would be disbanded. Fletcher wrote this in his final report. This investigation had enough evidence to indict at least 3 players and potentially bring down the entire Cowboys organization. But political pressure from the highest levels made prosecution impossible. The decision to close this case was not based on lack of evidence, it was based on power. March 18, 1997. That morning, Jerry Jones made 3 phone calls from his office in Dallas, and those calls would seal the darkest secret in Cowboys history forever. The first call went to former FBI Director William Sessions. The conversation lasted 12 minutes. The second call went to Texas Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison office. The conversation lasted 7 minutes. The third call went directly to Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. to Attorney General Janet Reno office. That conversation lasted exactly 18 minutes, and when Jones hung up the phone, there was a smile on his face. In the next 72 hours, extraordinary things happened. Robert Fletcher and 8 agents on his team working in FBI Dallas office were reassigned to different cities. The Operation Starfall file was sealed under national security protocol. And most shockingly, all charges against the 3 Cowboys players named in that file were dropped. Fletcher left his office in Dallas on March 21 and was assigned to a small FBI branch in Montana. He would spend last 5 years of his career there and retire early in '99. In an interview he gave to a journalist in 2004, he described Cowboys' investigation as the biggest disappointment of my career. The journalist asked him, "So do you believe those players were really guilty?" Fletcher's answer was clear. "I don't believe. I know. We had everything. Phone records, video surveillance, witness testimonies, financial transactions, everything. But when you're fighting the most valuable sports franchise in America, and they have connections at the highest levels of government, evidence doesn't matter. Power matters." When that interview was published, no mainstream media outlet covered Fletcher's words because Cowboys were still very powerful and Jerry Jones was still very connected. But Fletcher wasn't alone. Some of the other agents who worked on investigation said similar things years later. Special Agent Linda Morrison, after retiring in 2006, said on a podcast, "We were told to stop, not because we were wrong, but because we were right." Another agent, in an interview with a documentary filmmaker in 2012 without revealing his identity, said this: "Jerry Jones made 3 phone calls and destroyed 2 years of work." That's the power of money and connections in America. The law doesn't apply equally when you're a billionaire. These statements sparked debates among Cowboys fans, but NFL never made official statement. And those sealed files still sit in an archive room in Quantico. Documents sealed for national security reasons cannot be opened for 75 years, so those files will remain secret until 2072. Until then, the identity of those 3 players, the transactions they made, how the system worked, will remain a secret. Even though Operation Starfall was closed, the Cowboys' collapse couldn't be stopped. Michael Irvin received 5-game suspension after his '96 motel arrest, and his image was forever tarnished. He ended his career in '99, but his drug problems continued. In 2002, he was arrested again for cocaine possession. Troy Aikman, meanwhile, suffered consecutive concussions in '98 and '99 and was forced to retire in 2000. Emmitt Smith transferred to Arizona Cardinals in 2002 and retired in 2004. The Triplets legend had ended, and Cowboys never reached that success again. For 27 years after '97, Cowboys didn't win a single Super Bowl. Some analysts called it the curse of the '90s. The team was still valuable, still popular, but the soul was gone because at the foundation of that success was a rotten system. So who were those 3 players? Because FBI files are sealed, exact names aren't known, but there are some clues. There's strong evidence that the player codenamed the Distributor was Michael Irvin because Irvin drug connections were clearly documented in court records. But the identities of the connector and the banker are still unknown. Some sports journalists at the time looked suspiciously at one of Cowboys' defensive players, but there was no concrete evidence. Some pointed to one of offensive line players, but that was just speculation. The truth is that with those 3 phone calls, Jerry Jones didn't just stop the investigation, he protected those names forever. And that protection continues today, because some of those players are now NFL commentators, some are coaches, some are businessmen continuing with their lives. If those names are revealed, it won't just be those players' reputations that are damaged, but the entire NFL. For Jerry Jones, this event was a victory. In '99, Forbes declared Cowboys the world's most valuable sports franchise. Jones' fortune exceeded $2 billion. And most importantly, FBI investigation was never fully disclosed to public. Average NFL fan today still has no idea about this investigation. Media at the time only talked about Michael Irvin motel scandal, but didn't see bigger picture behind it. Because Cowboys were such a big brand that any real revelation could destroy that brand, and America didn't want to destroy its own heroes. Robert Fletcher died in 2014 at the age of 70. At his funeral, an old FBI colleague said this: "Bob always talked about Cowboys file." That file bothered him for years because that file showed him that justice doesn't always win. Sometimes money wins, sometimes power wins. And in Cowboys' case, money and power trumped justice. Notes found in Fletcher's personal notebook told a story. On the last page, Fletcher had written this: "The truth will come out, maybe not in my lifetime. But in 75 years, when those files are unsealed, people will know, and they will understand that we tried, we really tried." Waiting until 2072 is a long time. By then, Jerry Jones will most likely not be alive. Only memories will remain of the Triplets, and Cowboys legend from the '90s will be forgotten in the past. But when those files are opened, history will be rewritten, and maybe then the world will learn what kinds of secrets were hidden behind America's Team Golden Age. Maybe then the real identities of the Distributor, the Connector, and the Banker will be revealed. And maybe then Robert Fletcher, 2 years of effort, will gain meaning. The Dallas Cowboys won 3 Super Bowls from '92 to '95. The Triplets legend was born. Jerry Jones became a billionaire, and NFL Most Valuable Franchise was created. But what was the cost of that success? 3 players were probably involved in a drug distribution network and received no punishment. The FBI investigation was closed due to political pressure. Files were sealed for 75 years and the truth was lost behind money and power. This isn't just the Dallas Cowboys story, this is America's story. A country where winners aren't always right, where power can always trump justice, and where sometimes truth is doomed to be forgotten. Today, the Dallas Cowboys are still the NFL most valuable team. Jerry Jones is still a billionaire owner, and the identities of those 3 players are still unknown. Maybe we'll find out in 2072, maybe we'll never find out. But one thing is certain, the truth is out there somewhere, inside a sealed file, waiting in the dark. And we want to believe that history will one day bring that truth to light, because justice should come even if late. Operation Starfall may have been closed, but its story isn't over yet. And this story reminds us that the winner isn't always innocent. Sometimes winners are just those who are more powerful, and the Dallas Cowboys are the best example of times when power was more effective than justice.